Well, the final shape has been out for quite a bit. Story has been completed. After story quests are getting done, and prismatic fragments are being hunted down. So, with the Light and Darkness saga over, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the best part of Destiny, the classes. If you have followed Bungie and their Vidocs, you probably noticed that they like to talk about fantasies in regard to class and ability designs. I will admit it took me a bit, but I eventually realized that the Titan, Hunter, and Warlock do a fine job in selling a specific fantasy to the player. Titans punch everything in sight, Hunters ooze style with their non-stop parkour, and Warlocks blow up everything using cosmic energies. It is these fantasies that players can build into as they discover exotics and weapon perks as they play. But there's another part to the fantasy, and that is the subclasses that are available to each. While the concept has evolved over the years, the core has remained relatively the same all throughout. That is, that each element is a subclass that is better defined by their super. Where before there were paths in each element, now there are aspects, fragments, and abilities that can be combined in order to make a certain build. This new level of freedom available to the player allowed them to more thoroughly customize their guardians. This transition has been extremely good for selling the fantasy of each class in regard to their respective elements, but it also had the maybe unintended side effect of reducing some elements into very specific, at times extremely oversimplified builds. Solar Warlock had a moment where it cycled through many exotics, but it always had Will of Radiance. Solar Titan revolves around Hammer Throw, with Arc Hunters being on a similar bow with Combination Blow. In PvP, things open up a lot, but that's because the different modes create different scenarios that demand more diverse builds. Where this system actually shone brightest to me was with the introduction of Stasis, Strand, and more recently Prismatic. I think this is due to them being made with a less constrained system in mind so that they are able to better flex their capabilities. Stasis is a class that is centered around freezing and shattering your enemies, with each class having distinct ways to do so. Titan freezes by creating lots of ice pillars, which could be shattered and repurposed into ice lances that can be used to freeze even more things. Warlock snap freezes their enemies directly by hitting them with freezing bolts of energy, or summons turrets that do so. Hunters can create storms of various sizes that freeze groups of enemies, with the capacity of empowering their grenades so that they can be even more effective at that task. Strand is an element that revolves around tangling your enemies in energy threads, or creating threads of constructs that deceive or damage your enemies. While an interesting concept, it manifests in very strange ways. As a start, Titan had two very distinct strategies. Lock down enemies by consistently suspending them, or dive into the fray with almost wild abandon, striking down your foes with blades built out of those threads. Hunters revolved around creating clones, directly suspending their surrounding targets by doing a stylish dive, and turning threat tangles into foe-seeking balls of pain. Warlocks became summoners of little creatures called threadlings, as well as being capable of turning tangles into bombs. With the arrival of the final shape, we got the new kid on the block, Prismatic, which kinda threw the whole Bukatchi concept into overdrive. As such, if you're playing the final shape, I recommend you make the most out of it now before Bungie decides it is high time to make adjustments. But the interesting part of this class lies in how they are made to be a mix of everything. Each class possesses popular abilities from each element and are able to use almost any combination of them in order to make a build. The main gimmick is Transcendence, where you empower yourself to cast abilities more often and deal more damage. Since all elements are mixed in, you also get to use some of their passive abilities of them, meaning that you can empower yourself with different buffs from different elements and wreak a little bit of havoc. Mind you, all of that is in addition to some crazy things that might be available to you depending on what exotic armor and weapons you might have. There are exotic armors that are tailored to make an element more effective, like the Ice Bucket Helmet for Stasis Titans, that augment diamond lances by allowing them to create ice pillars on impact and do more frequently create more lances. combined with a hard bow that allows you to shoot arrows made of ice that create pillars on impacting the ground, and you get a stasis-oriented build that can freeze and shatter everything. These are a very simple example since I'm not the best at build crafting, but in essence there's a lot of gear that can push the fantasy of each element available to our guardians even further. If you made it this far and are wondering why I haven't spoken more about the base elements, it's because unfortunately they became a tad too homogenized for my taste. Void, Solar, and Arc all have survivability elements while they blow everything up. Equipment can make them a tad more interesting since they can enhance certain abilities, increasing their effectiveness or uptime, sometimes even both. And while I like exploding hordes of enemies as much as the next dude, I often find myself wishing that I could do more with some elements. But they ended up so standardized that the only way to draw attention to them is with hyper-specific builds that must also be effective. While I get that that's the point of build crafting, it should be the thing that gives them some kind of identity while also being made irrelevant if they fall behind in the survivability department. But the good news is that if there is a future Destiny game in the works, I'm pretty sure the elemental subclasses will be better defined if Bungie's recent works are of any indication. And while we wait for any news in that regard, I would love to hear what you all have to say about the subclasses in Destiny 2. Share your thoughts down in the comments below. That's it for me from today. Thank you all for watching, like, subscribe, stay hydrated, and take care, bye!